The casserole was still warm when Claire stepped back from the stove. She wiped her hands on a towel that still smelled faintly of last summer's lavender. She had been up since 6, scrubbing, folding, arranging, maybe overdoing it, but this was her first dinner as a homeowner, her first chance to host them. The table was set with her grandmother's china, faded blue rims, small chips, perfect in their imperfection. Name cards, too, not fancy, just printed and laminated at work. She placed Dad at the head, Mom to his right, and Elise across from her. Claire adjusted the wine bottle for the third time, smoothed her skirt, rehearsed her smile. She just wanted them to see it, to see her, and maybe finally say, "You've done well, Claire." At 6:35, she heard tires on gravel. Her stomach tightened. She adjusted a napkin, again, then smoothed the edge of the tablecloth like it mattered. They were here. The knock came fast, not rushed, not slow. She opened the door with the kind of smile you practice. Not because it's fake, but because you need it to work. You need them to say they're proud. Elise stepped in first. "No, hello." "Smells like food," she said, boots tracking faint dust. Dad followed, eyes scanning the walls like he was pricing them. "This place," he said, "has good bones." Claire laughed, unsure if it was a compliment. Mom came last, fingers grazing the mantel. She paused at an old photo Claire at 10, then turned away without a word. They sat, but no one touched the salad. Elise scrolled through her phone under the table. Dad asked Hardwood, "How'd you afford that?" Claire smiled tight. "It's manageable." No one asked about her promotion. No one noticed the frame print she'd saved up for. Mom glanced at the clock during the main course. "Everything's cooked," she finally said. Claire nodded. "Thanks." Her voice barely held. Still she kept serving. Dessert came cobbler with hand-cut apples, homemade crust. She waited for something. Anything. Dad stood. He folded his napkin slowly, deliberately. His eyes met hers, cold, decided. Then he said, "We've talked. The house should come back to the family." Claire blinked. "I'm sorry." "What?" Mom nodded, still not meeting her eyes. "You've done well, honey. But this is too much house." Elise leaned back. "It's not personal." Dad's voice stayed calm. "Your old room is still there." He gestured toward nothing like offering a favor. "We'll move in next week. Ryan has renovation plans." Claire's chair scraped loudly as she stood. "You can't be serious." Mom sighed. "Let's not get emotional. It's just a house, Claire." Elise disappeared into the hallway. Moments later, she returned carrying a suitcase. Green. Worn edges. "Claire's college suitcase. We packed your essentials," Elise said, "to make this smooth." Claire opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her voice locked somewhere deep in her chest. She swallowed hard. "I'm the legal owner." Dad's smile barely moved. "We'll sort that. No shouting, no chaos, just quiet, rehearsed betrayal." Claire walked to the table. She picked up her phone, wallet, and the keys. The same keys she had polished that morning. She placed them gently next to her untouched glass of wine. No one reached out. No one asked her to stay. Outside, the air felt too cold for spring. She placed the suitcase in her trunk. It thumped into the back like a body. She didn't look back, not once. Claire drove with no destination. Streetlights blurred into streaks, faceless and cold. The suitcase thumped at every turn like a heartbeat she couldn't shut off. She stopped at a gas station on the edge of town, one of those old ones that still sold air fresheners. She sat under the flickering overhead light, hands trembling, breath shallow. Her phone buzzed, unknown number. Something in her gut knew. She answered with a flat voice. "This is Claire." "Hi, Ms. Morgan," said a too-cheerful voice. "This is Alexis from Midwestern Bank's mortgage department." Claire sat up straight. "What kind of changes?" she asked. "There was a request to add co-owners to your mortgage." Alexis's voice stayed polite, unaware of the storm she lit. "They also tried to change your contact information." Claire's stomach dropped. "I didn't authorize anything," she said sharply. "No one has access to my account." A pause. Then Alexis replied gently, "That's what we thought too. We flagged it, locked the account, no co-owners, no shared authority. You're still the sole legal owner." Claire closed her eyes, steadying her breath. "Do you have the names?" They used Vernon and Mara Morgan. Not a surprise, not anymore, but still it burned. "Please send me the documentation," Claire said. "Of course." And Alexis hesitated. I'm sorry. Claire ended the call and stared into the quiet. Claire didn't cry. She didn't scream. She sat still in the gas station lot, the phone heavy in her lap. The buzzing lights above hummed like static. Inside her chest, something shifted. Not grief, not yet. More like a fracture beginning to split. She pulled back onto the road. Not toward home, there was no home now, only a house occupied by ghosts that breathed. The sun was rising when she slowed. Same curve, same street, but when she tried the key, it didn't fit. Claire tried the key again. No give, no click, just cold metal and a lock that no longer knew her. She stepped back, heart pounding. The curtains were different blue instead of cream. A plant she'd never owned sat on the porch. Then the door opened. A young woman stared back unimpressed. You, Claire? She asked, hoodie loose on her frame. Claire nodded slowly. This is my house. The woman tilted her head. They said you left. Voluntarily. Said you weren't stable. Claire's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. She wouldn't give them the scene they wanted. Behind the stranger, her hallway had changed. Photos gone. Rug missing. Nothing was hers. I'm going to need you to leave now, the woman said, voice flat. Claire didn't argue. She stepped back, heels clicking on concrete. A neighbor passed by with her dog, mourning. Claire, she called cheerfully like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't just seen Claire shut out of her life. Claire nodded nothing more. She drove again, this time slower. The silence in the car was suffocating, like she'd stepped outside her own story. She didn't go home. She couldn't. Instead, she parked across town in front of Nora's building and just sat. Claire didn't go in. She stayed in the car, engine off, wrapped in the same silence she'd left the house with. The sun dipped behind the buildings. Shadows stretched across the dash. She stared at nothing, but her mind wouldn't stop replaying everything. Nora found her hours later. No questions, no lecture. She just opened the passenger door and slid in beside her. I need to grab a few things, Claire said, eyes fixed on the windshield. From what used to be my home. Nora nodded once. Let's go. The drive back was silent. Nora stayed beside her, steady and calm. The porch light was off. The stranger's car was gone. They parked across the street. Claire moved slowly, heart tight. She peeked through a gap in the blinds. Someone was inside rearranging furniture. The mantel held new photos. None of them were hers. No degree, no family trip. Just unfamiliar faces smiling in her place. A neighbor's light flicked on next door. An older man stepped out. You, Claire? He asked gently. I am, she said. He looked away, then back. They've been in and out for weeks, always while you were gone. Didn't seem right. Nora turned to Claire, voice low and steady. You need a lawyer. Tonight. Claire didn't argue. She just nodded. Back at Nora's apartment, the kitchen smelled faintly of ginger tea. Nora poured coffee into a chipped mug Claire remembered from her first apartment. They sat across the table in silence. Not awkward, not cold, just waiting for something to land. Claire traced a crack in the glaze. They didn't just push me out, she said. They planned it. Nora folded her hands, eyes sharp. This wasn't messy. It was deliberate. Claire didn't answer right away. Her chest felt heavy, layered with quiet realizations. This wasn't a meltdown. It was a blueprint, a strategy. She remembered something. A weekend visit years ago, she'd overheard her name through a cracked door. She'll sign, her dad had said. Isolde had laughed. She's clueless. Claire had brushed it off back then, told herself it was taxes, paperwork, but now it echoed like truth. Lying on Nora's guest bed that night, she stared at the ceiling wide awake. The pieces fit too neatly. They'd been planning this for years. The next morning, they met Barbara Herrera, a lawyer with sharp eyes and a voice like gravel. Her office was plain but steady. Claire sat straighter just being there. Nora explained the situation first. Barbara listened without blinking, occasionally glancing at Claire, not judging, just measuring her strength. You're not the first, she said simply. Families steal from each other all the time. But when it's real estate, the damage cuts deeper. Claire signed the initial paperwork. Barbara laid out clear steps. Document everything. Do not engage emotionally. Stay clean. It felt cold, but also finally real. For the first time in days, Claire wasn't surviving. She was preparing. That night, Claire opened her old cloud account. Years ago, she'd installed cameras in the house. Motion-triggered, silent automatic. She hadn't looked at them since moving in. Nora sat beside her quiet. Claire clicked through folders she'd forgotten. Then there it was. Footage. Dozens of clips. Her mother calmly opening drawers, not rifling, evaluating, like an agent walking through a model home. Elise placing new books on Claire's shelf. Her father at Claire's desk typing something, leaning back in her chair as if testing it for size. They didn't look like trespassers. They looked comfortable. I didn't leave, Claire whispered. They were already moving in. Nora didn't respond. She didn't need to. Claire clicked through more footage, each clip colder than the last. Then something else caught her eye. A voicemail saved weeks before the dinner. She hit play. Isolde's voice came through clear and bored. Once she's out, don't let her back in, not even for the photo albums. No emotion, no hesitation. Claire sat frozen. The voice didn't sound cruel, just efficient, like moving boxes. That hurt more. That night she didn't sleep. But by morning, the tremor in her hands was gone. Not calm, not angry, just ready. She pulled out her laptop, scanned folders she hadn't touched in months. Deeds, receipts, legal proof that this house was hers. Claire found the deed first. Her name printed clearly. No co-signers, no shared title, only her. Next came the mortgage payoff, signed, dated, stamped 6 months ago. Then the release of lien. All clean. All legal. She forwarded everything to Barbara. No subject line, just the documents, then added the bank's confirmation. No co-owners, no permissions given. Each file felt heavier than it looked. Not just proof, but memory. Every signature a quiet echo of the woman who built something on her own. Claire whispered to herself, no more good daughter act. She plugged in a hard drive and kept going. The security footage kept playing. One by one, the clips revealed more. Mara, her mother, sorting through drawers. Not curious. Methodical. Isolde swapped out framed photos. Removed Claire's face. Inserted her own. Vernon unplugged Claire's router, replacing it with one labeled in his handwriting. They weren't breaking in. They were settling in. Like Claire had never existed. Like the house had always been theirs. She labeled the folder. They took it. Each clip named by timestamp, saved in triplicate. Evidence, not just memory. Her hands were damp, but not from fear. It was something colder, a fury that moved slow and clean. The next morning, Claire sat at Nora's table, coffee untouched, laptop open. She stared at the screen, then said it quiet but solid. They stole my house. Nora didn't flinch. She simply nodded. They underestimated you, she said. That was their mistake. Claire didn't smile. She opened her phone camera, hit record, spoke directly into the lens. My name is Claire Morgan. This is a record of what was taken from me by people I share blood with. This is not for sympathy, it's documentation. She saved the video to her hard drive. No filters, no edits, just truth. Simple, sharp, permanent. Later that afternoon, Barbara sent a draft. A cease and desist 8 pages long, full of legal weight, but it read like poetry to Claire. She printed it quietly, sat on Nora's floor back against the bookshelf, read every word aloud. Her voice didn't shake. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Morgan and Ms. Isolde Morgan. Each sentence felt like a correction, a restoration of truth they had tried to bury. When she finished, she folded it carefully by hand, sealed the envelope herself. Her fingers trembled, but not from fear. That night, Claire slept. No dreams, no waking, just silence that felt earned, and for the first time, safe. At dawn, her phone buzzed. No caller ID, just silence before the sound. Claire let it ring once, then again. Finally, she played the voicemail. Vernon's voice low and tight. You just started something you won't finish. Measured, controlled. Threat disguised as concern. She didn't flinch, didn't call back. She poured coffee she wouldn't drink. Watched traffic crawl beneath Nora's window, then forwarded the message to Barbara. Subject line. This is how they escalate, Barbara replied within minutes. Let them! We push harder now! Claire sat down at the table. She wasn't afraid. She was ready, and they had no idea who she'd become. Claire called the bank next, wanted to confirm her account was still locked. But the tone had changed. The voice on the line was cautious. I'm sorry, Miss Morgan, the rep said. Due to legal involvement, we can't release further information without a request from your attorney. Claire hung up slowly. Nora looked at her. They're making noise, she said, trying to pull it back in-house. Claire nodded. Well, it's not in the family anymore. Barbara filed an affidavit by noon. Claire signed it in dark blue ink, slightly smudged. Below her name it read, Claire E. Morgan, sole legal owner. She stared at the line. This time, it looked like it belonged to her. Around 3 p.m., Claire sent a text. Me. You free for coffee? Clayton replied within minutes. Sure, usual place. They hadn't spoken much since the breakup, but he'd always been steady. Maybe hearing it out loud would help her breathe. He arrived first, already halfway through his Americano. Hey, stranger, he said with a grin. Claire sat, hands wrapped around her cup. My family tried to steal my house, she said. Clayton blinked, eyebrows drawn. Wait, like actually steal it? Yes, she said. They changed the locks. He shifted in his seat. That's rough. But they're still your parents, right? Claire stared at him. And in that moment, something broke clean. Claire's voice stayed calm. They didn't lose their temper. They forged documents. They replaced my things like I'd died. Clayton shrugged. Sounds like a misunderstanding. Maybe let them cool off. It's just family stuff. She stood slowly. People who don't believe you when you whisper, she said, eyes steady, don't deserve to hear you roar. He opened his mouth to reply, but she was already walking away. Back at Nora's, the living room was quiet. Claire dropped her keys on the table, sharp, deliberate. Nora joined her on the floor, papers spread out like a puzzle. Restraining orders, she asked. Claire nodded. And something stronger. Layers. They're counting on you to stay emotional, Nora said, flipping through notes. To them, this isn't personal. It's transactional. Claire pulled up the old voicemail again. Isolde's voice flat and bored. Don't let her back in. Not even for the photo albums. Not a hint of regret. Just instructions cold and clean. Now Claire understood why. They hadn't slipped. They'd rehearsed. That night, she tried logging into the smart system. Access denied. Password changed. Even the device name had shifted. Tate Family Home. Claire stared at the screen, then whispered, They renamed my house. Not stolen, rebranded. Just after sunset, Claire drove by. The porch light had changed a harsh blue-white glow, replacing her soft amber. Through the window, new portraits lined the wall. None of them hers, just Vernon, Mara, Isolde, smiling like they'd always lived there. It wasn't a home anymore. It was a performance, a script rewritten without her consent. She parked across the street, engine off. Her house redressed, revoiced, redefined. Not haunted, occupied. They hadn't just moved her out. They were erasing her. Claire leaned back in her seat and let the cold settle in. Claire turned to leave but paused. Behind the fence, near the alley, a bookshelf, hers, propped beside 2 trash bags. She stepped closer, breath tight. The shelf was cracked down the back like it had been dropped hard. One bag was half open, a shift in the wind, and then the scent, lavender and rose water, her grandmother's sachets. The last ones Claire had kept. They threw it all away. Not just things, memory, meaning, pieces of her story. She took a photo, sent it to Barbara. Subject line, evidence of removal, with intent. Her hands shook, but not from grief. This was fuel now. Back at Nora's, papers covered the floor. Deeds, footage, mortgage statements. Claire moved with focus, not panic. Each piece had a place now. Barbara joined by speakerphone. Claire laid out the title again. This, she said, tapping the date, is when it became mine. No co-signers, no transfer agreements, just her name in black ink. Barbara's voice came through crisp, good. We'll lead with that and the footage. Claire nodded, voice steady. I don't need to scream anymore. The paperwork speaks louder, and this time someone would listen. That evening they returned to the house, but not alone. 2 sheriff's deputies walked ahead, papers in hand, legal and final. Claire stayed across the street, hidden in the car. The cold air fogged the windows slowly. She watched as the deputies knocked firm, no hesitation. Vernon opened the door. Stone-faced, arms crossed. Mara stood behind him, silent. Isolde appeared at the top of the stairs. This house was always meant for family, Vernon said to the officers. She's unstable. Ask anyone. They didn't argue, just documented. Claire hit record, not for revenge, but for memory. For truth they couldn't rewrite. Inside the car, Claire watched it unfold, their voices calm, practiced, but the more they spoke, the more they exposed themselves. Mara crossed her arms. Isolde kept glancing at the deputy's clipboard. They weren't scared, they were offended at being questioned. Back at Nora's, Claire collapsed onto the couch, not from exhaustion, but release. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was earned. Then her phone buzzed. No caller ID again. She let it ring once, then played the voicemail. A man's voice, unfamiliar, but sharp. You think you've won something? You haven't seen what we're capable of? No name? No apology? Just venom. Claire didn't flinch. She forwarded the voicemail to Barbara with a single line. More proof of intent. Barbara replied within minutes. We expected this. Now we press harder. The strategy was shifting. Later, Claire sat at Nora's table, the cold light of early morning filling the room. Then a text from Nora. Check your credit report. Now. Claire opened her laptop. Fingers cold, heart steady. 2 new inquiries accounts. She hadn't touched, names she hadn't typed. But the address... her parents' home. They were done taking the house. Now they wanted her name too. Claire stared at the screen. Not shocked, just tired. They're using my identity now, she said quietly. Nora leaned in, reading over her shoulder. This isn't emotional anymore, she said. It's fraud. Claire nodded, jaw tight. She opened old emails, the ones she'd archived but never deleted. There it was, Mara asking for her social security number. Another thread, Vernon requesting her W-2 for taxes. Claire had sent them both, back when she still believed trust could buy peace. At noon, they met Barbara again. Claire slid the laptop across the desk. They've crossed the line, she said. Barbara didn't blink. Then we file fast. Barbara began drafting the emergency petition. Not just for the house now, but for financial manipulation, fraud, and identity abuse. Claire handed over every document. Every careless click she once thought was love. Emails, screenshots, timestamps, the wreckage of misplaced trust. You're not a victim anymore, Nora said softly. You're a litigant. The words didn't comfort Claire, but they clarified her. She stepped out onto the balcony that night, phone in hand, air sharp. Then the screen lit up Aunt Vera. Claire hesitated, then answered. Vera's voice was already tight. Can we just talk like adults? I'm listening, Claire said flatly. There's a lot of upset right now, Vera said. You bringing in lawyers? That's not how we solve things. Claire stayed quiet. I tried solving it at the dinner table, she replied. You remember how that ended? Vera sighed. You're making yourself look ungrateful. Claire's breath caught, then steadied. Gratitude doesn't include silence when someone steals from you, she said. Vera lowered her voice. You've always been headstrong. I'm done being your project, Claire said. I'm not their puppet. I'm the only one who didn't take anything that wasn't mine. She hung up. No anger, no tears. And for the first time after a family call, she felt nothing but peace. Later that night, an email arrived. Subject line, play in private. No message, just one audio file. Claire stared at it, then pressed play. First the hum of a car, then Vernon's voice, calm, familiar. We start with the key. Once she's out, change the locks. Slowly shift everything. Isolde's laugh followed. She'll cry first, then call a lawyer. Vernon replied, steady as stone. By then, the narrative's ours. Claire didn't move. Nora sat across from her, frozen. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a strategy session, like she was an object. She saved the file 3 times, then sent it to Barbara. No caption needed. The tape spoke for itself. Within hours, they were at the courthouse. Barbara handed a clerk the thumb drive, along with a signed emergency motion. No delays, no mercy. The judge reviewed it in 2 hours. A formal hearing was set. Claire walked out of that building feeling nothing like victory, but sharper. Back at Nora's, she opened her laptop again, logged into a private support forum. She'd been a silent member for months. Now she posted her story, redacted but real. By morning, it had over 300 comments. I thought I was crazy. This happened to my sister. They erased me too. Claire didn't reply to all. She didn't need to. Just reading the words made it easier to breathe again. That afternoon, a reporter messaged her. We're covering financial abuse in families. Would you speak off the record? Claire didn't reply, but she didn't delete it either. By evening, the ripple had reached them. Barbara called Vernon's old business partner, saw the forum. He asked, Is that your daughter? Claire didn't smile, but something inside her settled. Later, a single word text from Mara Y. She locked her phone without responding. Isolde was dropped from a speaker lineup, a leadership event she'd bragged about for months. Someone had forwarded the thread. Claire didn't say a word. The silence was loud enough. This wasn't revenge, it was visibility. Claire watched her case update online. Her name, her hearing date, official stamped real. She read it 3 times, then closed the screen. The courthouse looked the same that morning, but she didn't. Barbara met her on the steps, folders in hand, presents like armor. Inside, Vernon sat with folded arms. Mara beside him gazed down, Isolde across the aisle, jaw-tight scarf too neatly arranged. Barbara led with facts. Timeline, documents, the recording. Then the judge turned to Vernon. "Do you deny filing false claims? I deny criminal intent," he said. If she had just listened. Isolde chimed in, rehearsed. She never used that office anyway. The judge cut her off. "You're not on the deed, are you?" Silence followed. Claire didn't look away. Claire took the stand slow, steady. Swore in. Sat tall. No shaking hands, no practice lines. Just truth. "I bought that house myself. Every payment, every repair. They entered without permission. Packed my life into a suitcase." She paused. Let the room breathe. "They didn't just take my house. They tried to erase me. No tears, no fury, just clarity." The judge nodded slowly. This court recognizes Claire Morgan as the sole legal owner. Restraining order upheld. Financial inquiry opened. Outside, a reporter asked, "Is this justice?" Claire answered without hesitation, "Justice is knowing I never have to explain myself to them again." That night, she unlocked her front door, not in fear, but in peace. And for the first time, it felt like home. If any part of this story echoed something in you, a memory, a silence, a moment you didn't speak, know you're not alone. And you never were. Drop a comment, even just a word. Tell me where you're watching from or what part hit hardest. I'd truly love to know. And if this story stayed with you, consider subscribing, because the stories we need most are often the ones that remind us we still belong.